Well, as the saying goes, the acorn does not fall far from the tree. Well, looking at the history of the Xia Dynasty and what has been happening so far, we would actually have to wonder about that statement. So, well, does the saying apply? Does it hold true in the story that we are going to talk about today? Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Apingo and I am the Chain Smoking Writer. Here we share the myths, legends and histories of the Chinese people, from the first creation myth to the last imperial dynasty. More than 6,000 years of stories, one video at a time. If you'd like to join us on this journey through time, remember to give a thumb and a sub to the video and the channel so you'll never miss an episode wherever it drops. And now, on to the story. Now, in the last episode of this series, we spoke about King Qi and how he passed away just 2 very short years after cementing his grasp on, absolute power. And after he passed away, his successor, because it's hereditary now, his successor was his oldest son and his heir, of course, and his name was Tai Kang. Now, Tai Kang, I guess we can say that in this case, the acorn really did not fall far from the tree. Because having spent his formative years during King Qi's reign, during his father's reign, and witnessing the excesses that his father indulged in, I guess it wasn't that surprising that Tai Kang became an even bigger wastrel than his father ever was or would ever dream to be. Tai Kang's days were either spent in a drunken stupor in his harem or on massive hunting trips that sealed off great swaths of land, great swaths of hunting grounds just for his personal hunts and his personal pleasure. And he showed a total lack of interest whatsoever in, affairs of the states, and he practically ignored all kinds of military matters. And one could say that Tai Kang was kind of the very definition of incapable or self-indulgent ruler. So yeah, that's Tai Kang in a nutshell. Now, as an example of just how indulgent Tai Kang was, shortly after he took the throne, he felt that the current royal palace was too small and the capital city was not ideal to express the greatness of the dynasty and the kingdom. So he ordered that a new capital be built at a more suitable location. And so after a period of surveying the land and hunting and scouting for a proper place to build the new capital, they settled on this place called Zhenxun, which was on the south bank of the Yellow River to the north of the Luo River. So it's kind of like in the middle of the area where the two rivers meet. And it was chosen because it sat on a vast expanse of flat, fertile land. And as you know, fertile land for farming and agriculture is actually very important for this time period because it forms the basis of the economy of a kingdom. And this Tai Kang just, decided to take up this huge swath of land to build a palace complex. So after dumping in countless amounts of resources and manpower, a great palace was built that covered the plot of land about 10,000 square meters just to satisfy the new king's vanity. Now, how big is 10,000 square meters? It's about the size of 2 football fields or soccer fields for those of you in the United States. Yeah, about the size of 2 football fields. I mean, by today's standards, it is big, but it's not huge or overly indulgent. But you have to remember that this happened about 2000 BC, and with the kind of technology and the kind of resources and manpower that they have at that time. A palace just for one king that covers the size of 2 football fields. That is huge. And all this on the whim and on the order of one man. So yeah, that's just an example of how indulgent Tai Kang was. Now, apart from, building that palace, and apart from all the alcohol and the women, Tai Kang was a very avid hunter. Much like his father, he enjoys organizing big hunts. And it got to the point where he actually, organized and formed a special retinue of hunters just to follow him on hunting trips and nothing else. And these hunting trips will happen like, every few days. It's not like, we'll do it like once a month or once every 2 months. It happens every few days. And when we talk about hunting trips, royal hunting trips, it's not like, 2 or 3 people going out into the forest, shoot a few rabbits, and then we come back and that's the end of it. Hunting trips at this time, of this period, in fact, until like, much later on, royal hunting trips were big, massive events that kind of like mobilize hundreds, if not thousands of people to pull off, and it covers a great expanse of land, and it basically sealed off great swaths of good hunting grounds. I mean, it's the king's hunt, so of course he would be hunting on the best hunting grounds. And what happens was that when you seal off these big areas, you are depriving the working hunter of livelihood, because the king is hunting for pleasure, whereas there are real actual working hunters in the land that actually hunts for a living. They go into the mountains, they kill foxes, rabbits, what have you, and they sell whatever they hunt, or they eat whatever they hunt. And because of the frequency of these hunts that Tai Kang will organize for himself just for fun, it actually greatly disrupted the livelihoods of a lot of these peasant hunters. And the thing is, when Tai Kang sealed off the hunting grounds, any commoners that were found within the designated sealed off areas would be viewed as disruptors to His Majesty's hunt. And they will be beaten viciously, oftentimes onto death, beaten to death oftentimes. It was not a joking matter, it was serious. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, this greatly affected the livelihoods of the common hunters, but what can they do? There's nothing they could do except to, quietly swallow whatever pain and suffering they have and accept that this is what it is. The king wants to hunt, the king gets to hunt. Yeah. Now, on one occasion, King Tai Kang organized the greatest hunting expedition he ever embarked on. And we are using the term expedition, not just a hunting trip where you go out and you come back, even for his standards. Now, on this trip, apart from his usual retinue of hunters, his special retinue, and the people who, organize all these events, he brought along his entire family, his harem, all his lovers, and his entourage of, bootlickers and hangers-ons. And he basically just left a skeleton crew in the capital, in the courts, basically just to make sure that things would just tick along at the bare minimum. Now, of course, being an expedition, it was planned to be a multi-day event right from the get-go. However, as the days went by, King Tai Kang got more and more enthusiastic about the hunts, and he started delaying the date of return, and it just went on and on. So can you imagine how much it will cost, the cost and the resources involved in maintaining such a big group of people on an expedition over multiple days, with all the extravagances and the indulgences that King Tai Kang is so fond of. So yeah, that's another way that he's actually spending money like it's nothing, like it's water. Anyways, so it went on, and it went from days to weeks, and from weeks to months, and by the time that Tai Kang was away from the capital for about 3 months, the realm was already suffering from the effects of, stalled decisions and essential works that, needed to be done but were not being carried out because decision makers were not in court. And the corrupted officials, seeing that, there's no one here to oversee us and there's no authority in the court, the corrupted officials took the chance to benefit themselves, taking bribes, making sure they fatten up their own purses and what have you, as all corrupt officials would do. And who will be paying the price for all this? Of course, the people will be suffering, the peasant class and the underclass, the commoners. They were the ones suffering the consequence of this indulgence. And while all this is happening, there is a clan called the Yu Chong Clan that belonged to the Dongyi tribes that was settled in the lower Yellow River regions, and their leader was a descendant of the Sun Slayer Ho Yi, or Yi. You might remember his story from the previous series that I spoke about him, the guy that shot out 9 suns from the sky. Yeah, I will put a link to that video up here. Anyways, the leader of the Yu Chong tribe at this time was supposedly a direct descendant of Yi, and he took his ancestor's name, and he also called himself Ho Yi. And this is an ambitious fellow who always harbored ambitions of taking the Xia Dynasty's throne for himself. Now, when news reached him that, Tai Kang has been away from the capital for such a long time and things are actually kind of going down the drain in the capital and throughout the land, he sensed that this was an opportunity that he had been waiting for. And so Ho Yi officially denounced the corrupt rule of Tai Kang and rallied the armies of the clan for an attack. And as the Xia military has been pretty much neglected from the later days of King Qi's reign, they were untrained and ill-equipped to put up any semblance of resistance to the surprise invasion of Ho Yi's forces. Now, it didn't take long for Ho Yi and the Yu Chong tribes, the Yu Chong army, to march through the land and surround the capital city, the new capital city at Zhenxun. And being poorly defended and led by officials that excel at nothing more than buttering up their king and brown-nosing their superiors, it was not a stretch of imagination to realize that, the city will fall at any time, and true to form, these useless and corrupt officials decided to abandon the capital and, escape through the north and west gates of the city, while Ho Yi and his army was attacking the south and the east gates. But of course, they didn't get very far because the city fell with nary a fight being put up, and there was practically no resistance to the invading force. So the city fell, and these deserters were rounded up before they got too long. They were chased down and rounded up by Ho Yi's forces. And once the capital was taken, Ho Yi personally led a part of his army, and they garrisoned themselves on the north bank of the Luo River to cut off King Tai Kang's return route into the capital. Now, while all of this was happening, the capital fell, the officials were captured, blah, blah, blah. Tai Kang was happily on his hunting trip, and he did not even know that he lost his capital. And it was not until he made his merry way back to the capital, and when he reached the southern bank of the Luo River, with all his hunting trophies and what have you, he was shocked to find that there was an army waiting for him on the opposite bank. And only now did he start to get kind of alarmed, like, hey, there's not supposed to be an army there. What the hell are these people doing over there, man? And he only realized what happened when he sent a scout out to find out the intention of Ho Yi's army on the north bank. And when he realized that, the capital is lost, the city is lost, and this is kind of serious, it was only then that he sent out desperate pleas for help and reinforcement, to the various chiefs and the various nobles of the land. However, they were all ignored. None of them would rally to his call, either through their disgust of his behavior, or they were in fear and in awe of Ho Yi's might, his military might. Now, of course, Tai Kang was full of regret now, kind of late if you ask me, but full of regret. There was nothing he could do except to build up a mud fort on the south banks of the Luo River to settle in and hope that reinforcements will come to help him retake the capital. But nope, no one came, no reinforcements came, not even a single soldier, and he practically stayed there, stuck on the south bank of the Luo River for the next 4 years. And being raised in luxury and not accustomed to hardships and harsh conditions, 4 years of living in such conditions, kind of took a toll on Tai Kang's life, and he passed away after 4 years in the mud fort. And apparently he is buried in today's Henan province. So now that the king is dead, long live the king, Ho Yi was kind of like in charge now, and he could very well seize the throne for himself, like we would think. However, Ho Yi was politically aware, he was astute, and he was very politically aware of his own situation. I mean, he understood that the only reason that he was able to take the capital so easily was due to an element of surprise. He launched a surprise attack and caught everyone off guard, and that's how he took the capital so easily. And there are still 12 remaining clans of the Xia tribes that are related to the royal court, to the royal family, and they have enough combined powers to remove him if they wanted to. And the only reason they did not take action so far was most probably they view Ho Yi as kind of like the lesser of two evils. I'd rather have a person who is kind of capable and is willing to do stuff rather than self-indulgent and a wastrel on the throne. However, Ho Yi was not so brazen that he would, take the throne for himself. Now, it was with this awareness and this understanding of his political situation that Ho Yi did not order the massacre and the enslavement of the royal family. In fact, he installed Tai Kang's younger brother, one of his younger brothers, named Chong Kang. He installed Chong Kang as the new king of the Xia Dynasty. He even recalled most of the capable and loyal officials and ministers that were ousted by the previous corrupt administration. He recalled all these capable people to come back and help to run the kingdom, to run the state. And of course, he installed a member of the royal family as the new king. Now, although, the dynasty welcomed a new king from the royal family, everyone knew for a fact who the real ruler behind the throne is now. And yeah, Chong Kang, although in name was a new king, we will find out in future episodes that he was little more than a puppet. And this was a start of more than 40 years of rule by an outsider in the Xia Dynasty. Now, if you do not want to miss what happens next, remember, thumb for the video and sub for the channel. Now, I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I enjoyed telling it, and yeah, as usual, if you'd like to support the channel on Patreon or other social media platforms, the links are all available below in the description box. And I always look forward to your comments and your feedback, and I do look forward to the discussions and the banter that we have down there. So yeah, please go ahead, leave your comments in the comment section below. and I would definitely go through all of them and reply to all of them if it's possible. And yeah, I guess that's it for today, and I will see you in the next episode.